After months of emotional isolation, constant fear, and being locked away from the world, Ntxhi had reached his breaking point. It was a cold Minnesota winter night, the wind howling outside, a stark contrast to the stifling silence inside the house. He sat on the floor, hugging his knees, his voice a barely audible whisper, repeating the same words over and over. I can't live like this anymore. I need help. His eyes darted from the locked front door to the bedroom window. The window was his only chance. Taking a deep, shaky breath, he knew what he had to do. This was it. The final night. He moved with a desperate quietness, his hands trembling as he slowly lifted the window sash. A blast of frigid air rushed in, stinging his skin, but it felt like the first breath of freedom he'd taken in months. Without hesitating, he climbed out, his bare feet sinking into the fresh snow. He didn't have a plan, no destination in mind. He just ran. Under the pale moonlight, against the freezing backdrop of the Minnesota landscape, Ntxhi ran, fueled by a single powerful instinct. He had to get away. Every step was a painful reminder of the cold, but the fear of being caught, of being dragged back into that suffocating existence, was far worse. Shivering uncontrollably in the dark, he managed to pull out his phone and make the most important call of his life. The voice on the other end was calm, professional. 911. What's your emergency? Ntxi's own voice was a trembling whisper, cracking with fear and cold. I need help. I ran away from my house. My wife, she won't let me go anywhere. I'm scared. The dispatcher tried to soothe him, asking, where are you right now? Are you safe? But as Ntxhi looked around at the dark, unfamiliar surroundings, shaking violently in the snow, he had no answer. He was lost, alone, and terrified. When the police finally found him, the flashing red and blue lights cut through the darkness, a beacon of hope. They saw a young man who was freezing, utterly exhausted, and emotionally shattered. One of the responding officers later recalled the encounter. He wasn't drunk, high, or violent, the officer stated. He was just scared. He told us he felt trapped and controlled like a prisoner in his own home. The desperation in Ntxi's eyes told them everything they needed to know. This wasn't a domestic squabble. It was a cry for help from a man at the end of his rope. Back at the house, the silence was broken by the creak of a floorboard. Grandma woke up. The first thing she noticed was the cold air pouring in from the wide-open window. Then she saw the empty space where Ntxhi should have been. A wave of panic washed over her. She paced the room, her initial fear quickly morphing into a deep, painful regret. In her native Hmong, she murmured to herself, a heartbreaking admission of her failure. Maybe my love wasn't enough. The very action she took to keep him close had driven him away into the freezing night. When the police arrived at her door, their presence confirmed her worst fears. Their body cam footage captured the tension of the moment. An officer calmly began, Ma'am, we're here to talk about your husband. Grandma's response was instantly defensive, her voice laced with a possessive anxiety. He's young. I don't want him meeting girls. I'm just protecting what's mine. In her mind, she was safeguarding her marriage. But to the officers, and in the eyes of the law, her words were a confession. Her fear of losing him was now undeniable evidence of emotional control and abuse. Because Ntxhi was a new immigrant with a limited support system, his case was quickly transferred to social services. Professionals trained in these complex situations stepped in to help. A social worker who was assigned to his case described him not as angry, but as profoundly heartbroken. He wasn't looking for revenge, she explained. He still cared for her, but he was suffocating. All he wanted was the freedom to live his own life, to be treated with respect, to be a partner, not a possession. The system was now working to give him a voice and protect his rights. After weeks of separation and mediation, they agreed to meet. The confrontation was set in a neutral meeting room at the social services office, supervised and recorded. The air was thick with tension as Ntxhi nervously entered. Grandma was already seated, her body stiff, her eyes red and swollen from crying. The social worker set the ground rules. You two may speak, slowly, respectfully. Grandma spoke first, her voice trembling. My son, why did you run away? For a moment, Ntxhi looked down, gathering his courage. Then he met her gaze, his own voice steady but filled with pain. You didn't let me live, he said. You didn't let me breathe. I loved you, but you turned our house into a prison. The truth, spoken so plainly, finally broke through her defenses. Tears streamed down Grandma's face as she confessed her own fears. I was scared, she sobbed. I was so scared to lose you. Ntxhi's reply was quiet but devastating. You lost me because you didn't trust me. A long, heavy silence filled the room, a silence that held the weight of their entire relationship. In that moment, the future of their marriage hung precariously in the balance. Was there any path forward? Could they rebuild what was broken? Or was this the final, irreversible end? As a community elder familiar with their situation wisely noted, control is not love, but forgiveness is possible. If both hearts are willing, the question was, were their hearts willing? The journey to this point had been one of pain, fear, and a desperate search for freedom. Now Ntxhi stood at a crossroads. As he walked out of that meeting room alone, the slow, emotional music underscoring the gravity of the moment, it was clear that his next step would define everything that was to come. His freedom, their love, their entire future rested on the decision he was about to make. The story is far from over. Join us for part 4, where we'll find out what he chooses, divorce or reconciliation. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the conclusion to this powerful story.